What's up, everyone? Welcome to Handcuff Status Podcast. My name is Rue Baby, and today we are going to be discussing pre-incarceration trauma, what it means, and the effects caused by the criminal justice system. We have an exclusive interview with Evonnda Fulton from USA. She is a crisis and trauma specialist, a school administrator, and a counselor. She is here today to share her experience, expertise, and story with us. So let's get right to it. Okay, Evonnda, I would love to ask you, what is pre-incarceration trauma?
So, pre-incarceration trauma is any trauma you've dealt with in your lifetime, and we've all dealt with some type of trauma, probably in our lifetime. But mostly in our Black and Brown communities, we have dealt with, we've seen community violence, we've had domestic violence, we've seen our relatives be arrested before and go to prison. We've had mental health issues. We've experienced all kinds of things like homelessness, even sexual abuse. So we've had traumas prior to going to prison. And once we get to prison, those traumas just don't go away, right? It just compounds. So even if you're incarcerated and you get a therapist or a counselor, you're going to experience more traumas when you're incarcerated. So it's just compounding and compounding and compounding, and it's peeling back layers and layers, but it'll never be you'll never be totally healed while you're in prison, because you're experiencing more trauma that you haven't even dealt with prior to going to prison or being incarcerated.
And with that being said, can you discuss the importance of recognizing and addressing pre-incarceration trauma within the juvenile justice system?
I think when juveniles go to prison or prior to even going, everyone, I believe, needs to see a therapist. I'm a counselor myself, and I'm in therapy. We all need to deal with healing. But I always say that we talk a lot about trauma, and we have these generational trauma after trauma going on generations, but there's something called generational healing. We can also heal and continue to heal if we seek, support, resources, help. And a lot of times when we get incarcerated, they may or may not get help they need or seek a therapist. But more than likely, it's a therapist that doesn't look like us and doesn't understand our walk of life. It's hard for young ladies or young men to open up to someone that doesn't even understand their plight. So I hope there's a lot of resources out there, especially here, living here in the United States. There's a lot of resources and a lot of therapists that do look like us. And we just need to give those resources or send those resources to help individuals that are being incarcerated. And you talk about juveniles, and I said before, they're suspended at Black individuals, males especially, are suspended at a rapid rate. And so we're opening up that line of school to prison pipeline, because once they're suspended, they're out in the streets. What are they doing out in the streets? We don't know. So we need to help them find a way to keep them in school and not open that line of school to prison pipeline.
I really liked that you pointed out generational traumas and changing that into generational healing, because I feel that is a very powerful message and a powerful movement that a lot of people need to cling on to, especially the Black and Brown communities, based off of what you've just said, our traumas that we experience. It keeps spreading and it keeps going down the line, but it's time to really heal and just look for someone to talk to. And with you being a counselor, how long have you been a counselor for?
I've been a counselor for since about 2009, so it's been a while. Yes. Yeah.
Wow. When it comes down to the groups of people that you speak to, are they all young groups of people or?
Majority of young. I speak to usually 14-year-olds, high school age, almost until the age of 29. I think once students graduate, or I'm seeing students that age out of foster care or the ward of the state, they need more resources than they did, because sometimes they have the resources in schools, they have the help. Sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, sometimes, but less and less as they leave the school environment, the resources are almost non-existent. So I have more students come to me after they graduate for resources to help them, help them navigate through this world and life in general. Even when they experience losses in their family or community violence, they're seeking help and assistance. And sometimes we just forget about them. And so even when, I've had several students either lose their lives or are incarcerated, I still try to keep in touch with them or their families to help them navigate this world, because generational trauma and intergenerational trauma and transitional trauma, it all goes hand in hand, and it eats up at us. And if we don't heal from it, it'll continue day in and day out in our daily lives.
In regards to emotional and psychological traumas, in your experience, how does the emotional and psychological trauma of incarcerated individuals, or even the individuals that you speak to during your counseling sessions, impact their ability to cope with the prison environment?
It affects, let's say this, it affects every individual differently, right? How they cope and how they deal with it depends on if they've never there's some people in prison that had never been in trouble before, right? And so now they're seeing themselves in prison with people that they never thought they would be in prison with. Anxiety, depression, not being able to see their family members, not being able to talk to their family members frequently. So that takes a toll. Being isolated that amount of time can cause you to be emotionally and psychologically, messed up at times where you weren't that before, prior to going to prison. So it's so many different factors. It's so many different ways people could be emotionally and psychologically impacted when they go to prison. It's really depending on that person. And when we talk about prior to even what they dealt with or didn't deal with prior to going to prison.
Let's say I'm an individual that is having an extreme hard time being in jail. What type of advice would you give to me, who, in my experience, never been to jail? This is my first
Mhm.
rodeo. I'm in the cell, crying, scared, worried. What advice would you give to me, someone who's never been there before but is now going to be serving 5 years?
So the advice I would give to someone that never experienced anything like that and is going behind a wall, so to say, to if they have any, you know, resources on the outside, they have any family members on the outside, make sure they keep in touch with them as best as they can. If they have any literature for them, to make sure they're sharpening their minds, their brains before when they do come out, and you need to keep reading. You need to keep researching. You need to find whatever support systems or resources they have in the inside. I know it's sometimes difficult to ask for help and support, but I think we need to try to find out what is the supports and resources on the inside, and keeping that bridge. Angela Davis has this saying that I love. It's walls turned sideways are bridges, right? So we need, if we keep ourselves closed up behind that wall, that we know prisons are behind walls, but if we keep a bridge, whatever that bridge is, on the outside. I think if we keep that bridge on the outside, then we have a better chance when we come home. So don't keep that wall up all the time. I know you have to secure yourself when you're in prison. You don't know the people that are in prison. Are they good, bad, indifferent? You just don't know. But for yourself, find what you love to do. I tell people, even on the outside, you have to find your passion. If you're not incarcerated or incarcerated, you need to find some type of passion and hone in on that passion. So when you do come home, you'll be ready to do what you're called to do in life. And so just studying and perfecting your craft and keeping your mind off, certain things. They say an idle mind is a devil workshop. But if you idle your time reading literature and connecting with the right individuals and making sure your support system is there. And I know everybody doesn't have a great support system, but if you do, keeping in touch with them and the resources that they share in the prisons.
Viewers, anyone who is currently incarcerated or has a friend or family member who's incarcerated, they'll definitely pass on this information to them, especially if they're having a hard time while being in jail. But with your own personal experience, did you say that your husband is incarcerated right now, or
No, I was in a relationship with someone for 9 years. That was incarcerated. He had 20 something years, but um, because of the federal system and the point system, he was released earlier than doing almost all the 20 years, but close to the 20 years. So I was with him for 9 years. And I also stated that my son was in prison for a year. However, he had a good supportive system. I was there fully reading and sending him material and making sure he was okay when he came home. He was okay. But yes, I did state that I was not married. I was in a relationship, a long-term relationship.
And how did you guys maintain that relationship with him being incarcerated for the 9 years? What advice would you give to someone who's currently awaiting their boyfriend or husband from incarceration?
Well, I had known this individual since I was like in fifth grade. So I've known him for a while. So me and his first cousin are best friends. So we maintained our relationship because we were already pretty much family prior to. So it was a little bit more easier. But while he was incarcerated, the visits, the phone calls, the letters, it wasn't prior to him going, it wasn't as easy as it is now, where you can get on the internet and email. So the letters and the visitations almost every other week, just communicating with each other, trying to support each other while he was incarcerated just helped. Me having an open mind about a lot of things helped also. Being open minded about, when I say open minded, I mean when he's having a difficult time, or his other, because he had kids, if his other kids or kids' mothers wanted to come up, it was okay. He needed that support, just not me. He needed to see and have that bonding before he came home. So um, just being open minded and not controlling and thinking something, if someone else came to visit him, that our relationship was going to end. That wasn't it. It was more of, you need this bridge, so to speak, and all the support you need for you when you come home. Because even when he came home, we weren't together, and it was okay. I'm very open minded, and I believe that, I always believe that if something is for you, it's for you, and God opens and closes doors. So whatever, he had a difficult time he was there for almost 17 years, locked behind a wall. So who am I to stop him from being able to live his life when he comes home? And I knew that in the back of my mind that it was a chance. I was taking a chance going into this. When he was going to come home, was he going to come home to me? Had we grew apart? Had does he have other aspirations? Does he want to be around his family? Does he want to go home to our hometown to his family? I wasn't there in his hometown. He wanted to be in his hometown around his family and kids, and I had to take that chance to say he may not want to come and move where I'm at. And that was his choice. So being open minded, because they've been through a lot, right? And not being selfish, because to be honest, we're out in the free world. We don't know what they have been through and all that they have been through in the inside, especially if they don't share each and every detail, because that could be hard.
Absolutely. And kudos to you for just respecting his
Mm-hmm.
choice because he was in jail for 18 years,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's really his life. I respect that you respected his choices of saying I'm going to this city. Is it like far away from you? Is it like hours
It
away?
was 3 hours away. It was our hometown, and I have all my family there. You know, my mother is still there. How and all my cousins and uncles, grandmothers. However, it's not a place that I would want to live. It's not. It's small. It's not. Progressive at all. So I had just prior to him coming home, I had just finished my master's in counseling, and I had got a job up here, and we just pretty much grew apart. He was just now coming home, trying to get his life together. I was actually starting a new whole life, right, and going to a whole nother town, another job, and I just graduated with my master's. So it was a lot. It was difficult. I'm not saying that I wasn't hurt about it. I didn't say I didn't have any sleepless nights. I didn't cry about it. I'm not saying that. But at the end of the day, he had to make the decision what's best for him, and I had to make the decision what it was best for me.
When it comes down to pre-incarceration, the topic and trauma, if I am an individual that's not in jail now, let's just say it's me because I am an individual not in jail, I experience trauma, not personal, but we're putting this in a story of my trauma is homelessness. And with homelessness, I'm more likely to possibly steal to survive and eat. What would you say to me to try to help me prevent from doing that road that's most likely my road because I'm homeless?
I would say to you, if I met you, again, we try to steer people in the right direction. We try to, I've had all my talks with people. You should do this, you should do that. And in the end, again, they have to make the decision for themselves. You just plant seeds inside of them and say, you know what, you should try this place, or I'll give you support or resources to go seek out, and hopefully one day. And I usually pray for that person when I give them support or resources, or I plant seeds into their mind, and hopefully one day they'll say, okay, I'm going to go and seek out these resources. You no longer do I preach to people anymore. That's not effective. I haven't found effective for at least in my line of work. Even with who I deal with, I can preach to them to a cow's home, but I can't force them to do anything. So all I can do is give them information, help be a resource or support, say I'm here to talk to you, or help you, take you to somewhere if you need to be taken to a shelter, if you need to go on an interview, if you need to speak to someone about getting a job, if you need help reconnecting with your family, I can be that bridge. That's all I can be, to help you. And I hope one day that you would take that me up on that offer or support or resources that I have afforded you. That's what I would say.
Yeah, it's mostly the resources that are around us and finding those resources
Hmm.
so that we can support that needs that that we have.
Hmm. And exposure,
In
right? Exposure. So if you're sitting around, you're not doing anything, and I'm having a just say an event, and you're homeless, and I see you, and we talk to each other. Why don't you come to my event? And be around some individuals. And sometimes when you're around individuals that you may see in yourself, you may have a turn of events one day. So. Mhm.
I believe in that for
Mhm.
sure. Someone who looks similar to me or has a similar experience
Mhm.
is saying, "Hey, this is what I
Mhm.
did." It's like, okay, I'm gonna try that
Right.
too, kind of
Mhm.
thing. I totally understand
Mhm.
that. With pre-incarceration, can you explain how does the loss of autonomy and freedom impact the mental health of an incarcerated individual, especially considering their pre-incarceration trauma?
I believe prisons and we're dehumanized sometimes, especially men. They're so dehumanized when they get incarcerated also. And when I say that, pre-incarceration, they're always looked at as someone that may do something. Black males may steal, may commit a crime. They're already looked like that. And so they're dehumanized daily almost sometimes. Then when they get incarcerated, of course, with all the rules and strict rules they may have to follow while they're incarcerated. So on top of that, they're not they lose their manhood at times, and the people that the prison guards or the warden, the rules and policies they have are around basically dehumanizing humans. And sometimes the people that work there want to be human and want to be may want to help someone out, but because they have these rules and procedures to follow that the system holds. And if you look at some of those policies and prison policies and system, they're dehumanizations policies. So there's no way around it sometimes. So they're impacted more probably when they get incarcerated due to that factor alone.
In regards to the resources that are inside prison, do you know of any resources to share or that are provided in jails?
Certain prisons do better than other prisons. I believe it's due to the state they're in, their policymakers, their wardens, who they have working in the inside, who are maybe more progressive. Maybe trying to help more. So it just depends. So, particularly for my son, he wasn't there for that long. So, he was in minimum security prison, right? So when he came home, they had be prior to him coming home, they had set him up with trying to get him financial assistance, food stamps, everything. A link card for he can have food and some type of financial assistance when he came home. So they did a very good job with that. Some people, they don't do a very good job in prisons with that. They come in and they just let them out with no support or resources. I've always said each and every prison, um, they talk about the recidivism rates, which is the revolving door of coming back and forth into prison. Why not prior to coming home to prison from prison? Why not work with individuals who will hire felons and have them interview while they're in prison prior to them coming home? Why not do that? Or why not have specific housing for them prior to coming home. Women are able to get housing before usually men, for some reason. They may have felonies. They weren't, but for some reason, we give grace more to women than to men. Their significant other, or just say living in an apartment complex or a low housing income complex, they can't go stay with that person and be on that lease. So where I mean, legally, right? Most of them do it illegally and have them come, and that's rolling into the dice and taking a chance. But we don't set up men to be successful when they come home from prison. Housing is difficult for men. So we talk about, why are all these men staying with women? Well, 1 out of 3 are felons in the United States. So 1 out of every 3 men are felons. Unless you have great credit, you do have a job, in order to buy your own property. And that's difficult for a person that has not been incarcerated before, to purchase their own property. So adding incarceration and a felon and trying to come home, who do you think they're going to go to? They're going to go home to their mothers. They're going to go home to their significant others, and hopefully they'll be okay. But as far as them being able to stand on their own 2 feet, most of the time, it's going to take them quite a while to do that. And some are able to do it right away. Some takes years and years, and it just compounds when they're not able to do that right away. And we as individuals, even us as women, and we put men down all the time, and we know what it takes for them to survive in this world sometimes.
And to add into that generational
Hmm.
healing, instead of putting
Hmm.
down, being like, hey, here's some help. I don't know anything, but here's some help. That is really the message that I hope passes on for all the generations to come. Thank you for sharing that. Um, Very good points on understanding that every prison is different, and not every prison is going to give you, food stamps when you
Hmm.
leave. And I feel it's very fair to be provided food stamps, because you don't know where this person is going to. They've spent, 10, 15, 20, 30 years here in this prison. And it's not guaranteed that they're going to go into a home. They could possibly go back into recycle to a cycle that brings them right
Hmm.
back into jail. So thank you for definitely pointing out those different factors with the different states. May I ask, which state are you in?
I'm in Illinois. So we're more of a
Illinois.
progressive state. I know some states are not as progressive as Illinois. Still difficult, but more progressive than other states that I've seen.
And your son came out of prison in Illinois?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Okay.
Hmm. But unlike everybody else, he had a great supportive system. So I don't want to, make it seem like when he came home, he had just a difficult time. He had plenty of people surrounding him, helping him, being able to, purchase him, whatever he needed when he walked out that prison system. And I think everybody needs that, right? I hope, I wish everybody had that.
Before we conclude today's discussion, I do want you to share a message or anything that you feel has been missed that you really want the audience to know and pass on with their people.
I would like everybody to take a deep look, and you said it again about us going through the healing process. Transgenerational trauma is when we transfer our emotions onto someone else, right? So as a parent, I look at my Black son all the time and tell him, you can't go here, you can't go here, because I'm scared. So I'm transferring my fears onto him all the time. And instead of letting him live, live his life. Things happen. We know it's going to happen sometimes, or things may not happen, but we transfer our fears. So that's one thing. We need to look in ourselves and not transfer our fears up on the people in our lives. Transfer more of a healing process onto them. Transfer, talk to them about going to seek out help, therapy, giving them resources. Don't instill more fear in them. Instill healing inside of them. So I think that's the message I really want to bring, that we just as a people need to deal with our traumas. And not let people exploit our traumas. We get on platforms a lot and we talk about all the bad stuff that happens to us, and nobody does anything about it, really. They just want to hear it. They want to hear the sad stories, but they don't want to help us, with, healing from our sad stories. So when we get on platforms like this, talk about, like I said, my son had great resources, right? It wasn't all bad. It was, it was a bad situation, but the situation could have been worse, right? So don't allow people to exploit us just because they want a story. Talk about how we can be help with solutions, how we can help with resources, how we can help pull that person, so to speak, out the mud, and how we did it, how even though we had this trauma, but this is what I did in order to not have try to heal from that trauma. So talk about that more. Mhm.
Yes, I'm very much aware because luckily psych major.
Yes.
Um, yes, psych
Mhm.
major.
Mhm.
Um, Talking about your traumas in a way heals you.
Mhm.
It makes you realize what is that trigger, and then you could have that self-reflection and act accordingly the next time you're in a situation like that.
Mhm.
So it's really good to really talk about it. Don't hide it. Don't hid it from everyone,
Mhm.
especially if it's hurting you. It's
Mhm.
really good to go out there and speak to someone about it, especially a professional, so they can guide you in the right way.
Or find something you just love to do. I write poetry. I used to write poetry. I was sexually abused when I was younger. So what I did was write everything down. So that made me feel a little bit better, right? So I found
Mhm.
something I love to do, and I just always did it to really alleviate some of those traumas and bad situations or memories that it kept replaying in my mind. So I released it through a spoken word.
Love that. In a
Mm.
way, it correlates to my healing because I love music.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like when you listen to music and sing the music,
Right.
it's like you're healing while you're going through it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you so much,
Right.
Evonnda.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening,
Mhm.
and thank you so much for sharing um, your experiences and expertise, especially with pre-incarceration trauma and just other traumas that correlate to someone um, getting imprisoned and
Mhm.
not getting that help that they need.
Thank
Thank
you
you so
so much for having me. I love
much.
what you all are doing with handcuffs, making people aware about incarcerated individuals. They need someone to speak on their behalf.
We would like to thank Miss Evonnda Fulton for sharing her story with us today. And for all those incarcerated, remember, freedom is a must. Free all the lifers, and shout out to Private Spaceship. Thank you all for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and follow Handcuff Status Inc. on all major platforms. And never forget our mission, breaking the chains of injustice. Take care, and until our next episode.